Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the nominees for their service to our country they're already doing, but their desire to serve in these important positions, and your families. It's a team effort, and I think we all know that and sometimes don't recognize how important our families are in all this, so thank you to the families as well. I want to first just get a commitment. There's a lot of things happening in my state, great state of Alaska, whether it's the new interest in the Arctic, in terms of national security, missile defense, fifth-gen fighters being stationed there. I'd like all of you to not only have an invite, but a commitment to say yes to the invite to come up to Alaska and see what's happening in Alaska. Can I get that commitment? If confirmed, you'll come on up to my state?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Senator.
Including maybe even in the winter?
I would like to return. My experience so far has been wonderful.
Great, thank you. So, Ms. Hirschman, I want to follow on what Senator Kramer was talking a little bit about. You know, big states like ours and his that aren't necessarily very populated relative to other states do have a lot of opportunities and good ideas for our defense establishment. I'll just give you an example. There was a company in the Matsu Valley in Alaska that creates an incredible product. It's hard to describe, but it's kind of like a Zamboni for aircraft carriers to make sure the carriers are Marine Corps amphibious assault ships are very, very clean with regard to their deck, so it doesn't hurt our fifth-gen fighters. These guys are very innovative. They're working hard. I went out to visit them recently. They did mention to me that a contracting officer somewhere in the bowels of DOD said, hey, if you want to keep this relationship going, you might want to think about relocating your manufacturing facilities to the lower 48 because it's easier for us. So can I get your commitment to make sure whoever the heck is doing that kind of stuff needs to be weeded out, told we want diversification throughout the entire country, and we have great companies, whether in North Dakota or Alaska, that they should not be getting the message from contracting officers in DOD that, hey, if you want to keep these contracts, you might want to think about relocating. That's unacceptable. Can I get your commitment to make sure that we're not doing that at all?
Yes, Senator. You have
And
my
just
commitment.
please send that message throughout the enterprise that that's probably illegal, but also just not smart.
I will do that. I will use it as an example.
Thank you. I've raised that with the SecNav already, and he had a similar reaction that you did. You know, I want to talk a little bit about, again, Ms. Hirschman, acquisition reform. I think you all know the history. You look at something like the SR-71, I think it was designed and launched within 18 months, kind of with slide rules, and that was a spy plane that lasted 4 decades. And then we go to the F-35 that took 20 years to field. Senator Tillis, if he were here, I'm sure would put his 400-page RFP for the NATO next generation pistol handgun, 450 pages of red tape. How can we get to the bottom of this issue of our acquisition program, which is, I think, broken? We're trying to do reforms here. You mentioned that CMO is not resourced enough, but what more can we be looking at? And I really want to encourage all of you, if you have ideas on major acquisition reform, you need to make sure we understand what those are and you know, hopefully can try to pass them. What are your thoughts on that?
Certainly, Senator. This is from a private sector example, taking a page from McDonald's, who is very good at managing and acquiring goods and services by category. So we have a large DoD-wide category management reform initiative underway. We are looking at everything from how many contracts we have for certain goods and services. I'll give you an example. We had 22 contracts for 2x4s. We actually buy a lot of 2x4s in the DoD. Here's the problem. We found that amongst those 22, several of the contracts were from the same vendor at different price points.
Yeah.
We necked it down to 2 contracts, $18 million savings, which seems small, but when you have 40,000 contracting officers, those small items start to add up very quickly.
Well, we want to, I have one more question, so I don't want to interrupt, but we want to work with you on major acquisition reform. I think the President's put together a good team in terms of serious, but we need your big ideas to help move this so it doesn't take 20 more years to field an F-35. Mr. Deasy, real quick final question. companies like Google, right, who decided that they don't want to participate with regard to Project Maven, a DoD project that dealt with AI and other issues. You know, we've had hearings on the Commerce Committee where, you know, I've said, that's fine, this is America, you don't have to deal with the Pentagon. But when companies like that, which are very sophisticated, then go to start looking at doing work for China, communist China, then I think we all should have a concern about that. How should we as the Congress deal with these kind of companies? Say, hey, we don't want to do work with the Pentagon, fine, on sophisticated issues, AI, but we're going to go over and do work with the Communist Chinese Party, which is certainly, in my view, our adversary. What should we be doing? How should Congress be thinking about addressing this?
Yes, I think this question of Google is much broader than just Google. I mean, if you look at any large of the cloud providers, the AI providers, any large company that the Department of Defense does business with today, they have activity that they are doing over in China. It's been my view from the beginning, just using the Google as an example, that we need to be much more thoughtful in how we write our contract language, how we put our intellectual property language into contracts that ensure us that when any of these large companies are going to have a relationship in China, that we have complete segregation, firewall off requirements as far as the data, the proprietary systems and solutions they create for us. I think the help that we can have from Congress is ensuring that from an acquisition standpoint that we continue to have very smart acquisitions on how we create those firewalls.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.